Hello, my name is Carrie Brown and I am with the Central Mississippi Regional Library System. Today I'm going to be reading to you chapters 5 and 6 of Calendar Mysteries July Jitters. Written by Ron Roy, illustrated by John Stephen Gurney, published by Random House, New York. Chapter 5. No Parade for Polly and Powell. "Stop, Polly!" Bradley yelled. He watched as his two pets hurried away. They crossed Main Street and disappeared behind the Shangri-La Hotel. "Bad pets!" Brian yelled after the fleeing animals. "No treats tonight!" "Come on!" Bradley yelled. "We have to catch them!" He sprinted through the crowd. The other kids followed him. On the other side of Main Street, they ran behind the hotel. They saw the senior center, the library, and the town hall, but they didn't see Polly or Powell. "Check in all the bushes!" Bradley yelled. The kids scattered and began poking through the shrubbery. They scared out a few birds and one rabbit, but no pony or dog. Bradley studied the ground. He knelt down for a closer look. "These are hoof prints!" he shouted. "Polly ran this way!" The kids stood in the hot sun and looked around. "Maybe she and Powell went into the hotel and got a room," Nate said. "Maybe they called room service and got cookies and lemonade." "Don't say lemonade," Brian complained. "I'm thirsty and it's about 1,000,000 degrees out here." "Polly and Powell must be thirsty too," Bradley said. "Maybe they went to the river." The kids raced past the library and crossed the bike path to reach the edge of the river. They looked up and down the river. A few ducks sped away, but Polly and Powell weren't there. "Where could they get to so fast?" Lucy asked. "It's like they disappeared." "This is bumming me out," Brian said. "I was already planning my mayor's speech." "Guys, we won't win unless we find Polly and Powell," Nate reminded them. Bradley looked to the right, shielding his eyes against the sun. Then he peered to the left. "The sun is hot," he said. "Maybe they headed for the woods where it's shady." The kids hurried north along the bike path. They kept their eyes moving, checking both sides of the path and the river on their left. They stopped in the woods. They were all out of breath. They peered through the trees on both sides of the bike path. "Check for hoof prints," Bradley said, but they saw no prints and no runaway pony. "I'm still thirsty," Brian said. "When I'm 1/4 mayor, I'll have soda pop every day." 1/5, you mean, Bradley said. "Josh says he has to be 1/5 of the mayor because he's part owner of Polly and Powell." "No fair," Brian yelped. "He didn't even help us make the costume." "Guys, let's not argue," Lucy said. "We have to keep looking." Bradley held up a finger. "Wait," he said. He stood still, closed his eyes, and sniffed the air. The others looked at him. "I smell horse manure," Bradley said. His eyes snapped open. "The horseback riding place is up there." He pointed along the bike path. "Maybe Polly and Powell went to visit the other horses." "Let's go check it out," Brian said. The kids started jogging up the path. It was hot and they were sweating. "I need a chocolate milkshake and I need it right now," Nate said. "We're almost there," Bradley said, pointing to a sign on the side of the trail. It said "Riding Trail. Watch for fast horses." "Watch for manure, too," Brian said. Nate heard the noise first. "I hear drums," he said. "Or thunder," Brian said. "Great! It's gonna rain." "No, I think it's horse hoof beats," Lucy told him. "You're right," Bradley said. "Look!" 3 horses with riders came galloping along the trail. The riders said, "Whoa!" and pulled up their mounts. 2 of the riders were men wearing cowboy hats. The third was a woman with red hair tied in pigtails. "Hey, kids," the woman said with a smile. "Going riding?" "No, we're looking for our pony," Bradley said, "and our dog. They ran away. Have you seen them?" "What do they look like?" one of the men asked. "They're both brown with white markings," Brian said. "There are some brown ponies back at the stable," the other man said. "Our pony's name is Polly," Nate said. He grinned. "She was wearing a white wig and a hat." Chapter 6. Vanished into thin air. "What?" the second man said. Your pony wears a wig? They were dressed for a 4th of July contest, Bradley said. Polly was supposed to be Thomas Jefferson. Powell, he's our dog, had a big Declaration of Independence on his back. This sounds more like an April Fool's Day trick, the woman said, but she was smiling. Try the stables next to the barn. Ask for Bucky, the stable manager. I hope you find them, the first man said. Giddy up, he told his horse. The 3 horses trotted away. The kids hurried up the horse trail. Soon they saw a red barn with a stable off to one side. Horse heads and necks stretched out over some of the stall doors. The stable yard was busy with workers and people who had come to ride the horses. I wonder which one is Bucky, Brian said. Bradley stopped a guy who was carrying a bale of hay toward the stables. Excuse me, are you Bucky? Bradley asked. The man laughed. Not hardly, he said. He pointed with his chin. That's her in the pink shirt. Bucky's a girl? Brian said. The man let out a loud laugh. Don't let her hear you calling her a girl, he said. The kids walked over to the woman in the pink shirt. She was old enough to be a grandmother. Her skin was tanned and her arms looked strong. She was wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. Can I help you kids? The woman asked. We're looking for a pony, Bradley said. I got plenty of ponies, Bucky said. She gave the kids a once-over. You're not old enough to ride alone. Where are your parents? We didn't come to ride, Lucy said. Our pony and dog ran away, and we wonder if they came here. Polly's wearing a hat and wig, Nate said. Who's Polly? Bucky asked. Our pony, Brian said. We dressed her for a contest. If we win, we get to be mayor for the day. Bucky stared at Brian. You kidding me? She asked. It was for the July 4th parade, Bradley explained. But Polly and our dog took off before it even started. Have you seen them? Bucky shook her head. Nope. But stroll over to the stables, she said. I suppose your pony might have snuck in there when I wasn't looking. Bucky walked away, shaking her head. The kids raced for the stables. The stalls on the right held tall horses, but there were 5 ponies on the left. One was white, one was black, 3 were brown. None of them looked anything like Polly. She's not here, Bradley muttered. Nate gazed at the other ponies. They look like they know something, he said. Yeah, they know someone else is going to be mayor for a day, Brian said. Contest must be over by now. The kids left the stable yard and took the bike path back to Bridge Lane. They kept their eyes open for any sign of Polly and Powell. How can a pony and dog just disappear? Bradley asked. They didn't disappear, Lucy said. They have to be somewhere we haven't looked. Right, Nate said, like up in a tree or down a rabbit hole. No, Brian said. We haven't looked in the most logical place yet. And where is that, brother? Bradley asked. Home, Brian said. Maybe Polly just went home. She could have run back to our house while we were searching everywhere else. Brilliant, Nate said. Thank you, Brian said, taking a little bow. Bradley poked his brother. I hope you're right, he said. I'm always right, Brian crowed. You're never right, Nate said. The kids took off running. By the time they reached Bradley and Brian's house on Farm Lane, they were all panting and dying of thirst. Brian turned on the outside faucet and they took noisy drinks. Then the kids ran to the barn. It was quiet and cool and empty. I don't see her, Lucy said. What about the pasture? Brian asked. The kids dashed through the door and around the back of the barn. They bumped into Josh, Dink, and Ruth Rose. The 3 older kids did not look happy. Thank you. Be sure to tune in next week for chapters 7, 8, and 9.